This is the Teaching Owl, and today I'm going to be talking about activities parents can do to help their children increase literacy and language development. I know parents are always wanting ways to, work with their children and make sure that they are successful in school, and I'm going to give you some ideas for your kids who are maybe toddler, preschool, kindergarten age to really help them be successful in reading. And the first thing you can do is just read. And you can do it from as early as birth to, late elementary, middle school age. I know that when I was even in high school, I still enjoyed listening to my teachers or adults reading out loud because they were just so fluent and it was enjoyable to listen to. So I'm sure it's the same for your kids. They probably like to hear you read as well. And while you're reading, I really recommend talking about the pictures. If there's an unknown word that shows up, talk about what that means. If your kid is very little, 2 or 3 years old, they might not ask you what that word means, but you could talk about it. If they said, oh, Cinderella was feeling glum, and you could be like, well, glum means sad. Look at her face. Doesn't Cinderella look sad in this picture? And so you could just talk about words that you're pretty sure your kids aren't going to understand. You could give them some child-friendly definitions for what the word means, and also using the pictures to explain the words is even more impactful. And if you can, maybe if the book is about something that they've experienced, try to relate it to your child's life. Like if you're reading a book about a kid going swimming, you could talk about, oh, you remember a couple weeks ago when we went swimming at the pool? Wasn't that fun? And, maybe take a moment to talk about that with your child. That'll just make the book even more fun and easily understood by your child if you relate it to themselves. I've included a couple of book lists for babies and toddlers and for pre-K kids. I will put these links in the description. So I'll kind of go through these books. This is from Book Riot, and I use this website for myself trying to find books. But they just have a whole list of books that are good for kids. I highly recommend Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. The kids really love it because they can recognize the alphabet, and it's got a catchy tune to it. Finger puppets are always good. Kids love those types of things. It's very interactive. The Very Hungry Caterpillar is another one that is highly popular with children. They love to see everything that the caterpillar is going to eat. Basically, any Eric Carle book is very appropriate for pre-K age. He takes topics and makes them easily understood to children. Goodnight Moon, classic, but it's just a lot of fun. And so there's about 50 stories listed here that are great that you could check out from the library or you can purchase. On the preschool list, let's see, I think it's from the same, it's also from Book Riot. Which ones do I notice off the top that look really good? Where the Wild Things Are is a fun one about a kid who gets upset, and it has a wild imagination of running away and going to live with the wild things. Snowy Day, I love that one. That would be a good one to relate to kids. It's like, oh, have you seen snow? Have we ever played in the snow? What kinds of things do we do in the snow? And it's just nice pictures. It's not really wordy. It's just a really good quality book. It's won an award. Another one, Leo Leone is another good author that has some quality literature. This one's Swimmy. I don't quite remember it that much, but I do remember that I feel like my kids really enjoyed that one. And generally interactive books are fun. Ones that have flaps to lift or touch and feel books, those are really great for babies to kind of describe things. So this is just a list. Oh, Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat is huge. In kindergarten, I would just basically read a whole bunch of Pete the Cat books. I would also recommend, I don't know if it's on this list, Mo Willems. He is very funny. He's really good for pre-K and kindergarten age students or kids. So reading, super important. Another thing that is good to do is nursery rhymes. Recite them, the ones that you remember from when you were a kid, or you could even look up some. I found this Wikipedia page of all the different nursery rhymes, and you could just if you kind of remember one but you don't remember exactly how it goes, like Hickory Dickory Dock, it'll have the poem or the little rhyme for you to say. Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. And so you could practice saying those multiple times with your kids, have them say it with you, and they're just really good. And it'll help them with rhyming, it'll help them with memorization and things like that. And they're not as common anymore. I feel like I had some books when I was a child that had nursery rhymes, and so that's how I heard most of them before I went into school. But I feel like we don't really say them as much maybe as we used to in the past. And so that might be something to bring into your kid's life, is just saying some of the nursery rhymes and have them practice them with you. They're a good thing to do. One thing I like to do is do a scavenger hunt. And you can always do like a theme or a topic for them, like, oh, find me something that's red. You could do shapes. Find me something that's a square, and have them bring it to you. This is good for helping them, learn adjectives and describing words. You could do things by size, or bring me something that's heavy, or bring me something that's light. You could do categories. Bring me something that can move, or let's find something that can bounce, or let's find something that's an animal or made from an animal. Or maybe something that's a food. So these are really good things to do with kids. It kind of gives them an opportunity to talk and for you to talk with them. And they're just really great. It's kind of a fun, quick way to get some talking and some language development in. Rhyming. Rhyming is a lot harder than it appears. Some kids have like a natural ear for it, and some kids, when I've taught kindergarten and I've taught older grades, and sometimes when I've taught kids in the older grades, they're still not 100% on their rhyming. Most kids, I think, get rhyming by around kindergarten or first grade. Some are a little bit older, second or third grade, before they fully understand it. And there's basically 3 levels of rhyming. One is just recognizing, do these words rhyme? Cat, hat, do they rhyme? Like, yeah. Or cat, dog, do they rhyme? No. So you would start off at that level. If your child is not understanding that cat and hat rhyme and cat and dog don't rhyme, then you need to maybe back up a little bit and practice more at that level before you go on to the next one. Just continue to do words that rhyme, like pig, wig. They rhyme because they sound the same at the end. Just constantly do that. It might take a few days or maybe a few weeks before they get that. But once they do, you can move on to level 2, which is you have one of the words and you see if they can, from a list of choices, can figure out which word rhymes. So which word rhymes with cat? Is it dog? No. Is it hat? Yeah. Is it cup? So have them identify from a list of choices a word that rhymes with the word that you originally said. Once they are successful at that, then they can produce rhymes on their own. So you can say a word, and then hopefully they can think of a word that rhymes with it. So like if you say, oh, tell me a word that rhymes with cat, and then maybe you can even have them create a list of words. Like, let's think of 3 words that rhyme with cat. Or maybe, if you're playing with more than one sibling, everybody can go around the car and say a word that rhymes with that word that you originally started with. So those are kind of the levels, and they get increasingly harder as you go. Some activities and games you can play: recite the nursery rhyme and maybe leave off a word. So hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up and see if they can figure out, it's clock. And then you could say, oh, dock, clock. Those words rhyme. Or maybe you could say, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. So which words rhyme in that? Wall and then they remember, oh, fall. They rhyme. So you could play that. You could do while you're driving, that's the little what the car symbol is for, play I Spy. I spy something that rhymes with bee. And you look around, it's like, oh, tree. Or I spy something that rhymes with toad. Oh, road. So you could just incorporate it in little quick ways. If you have a little bit more time and you want to print things off, there's a lot of activities on this website. If you have time, I would definitely explore. They have all the way up to 5th grade. I'm just going to show you the pre-K resources. They have stuff for alphabets, practice and alphabet sounds, and then they also have things for rhyming. And you can print some things off like this rhyming pocket pairs. And so there's different pictures and you pair them together. So if you'd like to include things that are more visual, I would do that. Vocabulary. Building that vocabulary is also very important. I'm not exactly 100% sure where I found this research, but I know sometime during my grad school work, I'd heard something to the effect of, and this is why kind of reading is important too, kids are able to sound out words that they know. So if they've heard the word that was read to them or maybe spoken to them, then it's easier for them to decode and figure out that word. So if you had talked to them about what a phoenix is, it's a mythical bird, and you maybe had seen Harry Potter and talked about that with them. So when they sound out that word later on as a beginning reader, or maybe a 1st or 2nd grade reader, they're familiar with what that word means because you talked about it with them, or maybe you read another story about it with them. So you're by building their vocabulary, you're helping them as they become readers, because they're not going to know a word that they'd never heard before. They might be able to sound it out, but they're not going to understand or comprehend what that word means. So it's very important to talk about, a lot of stuff. And that's kind of my first activity. Just talk to your kids about everything. Talk to them about why you're doing something. Talk to them about, what you're doing when you're cooking or when you're shopping, or, if you're fixing something or if you're making something. Just talk about it. Describe it. Let them ask questions. I'm sure they're going to still do that anyways, but, give them that opportunity. Read a variety of books about different topics. Don't just do duck stories or farm stories all the time. Maybe try new books when you go to the library. It's like, oh, let's read about this spaceship, or let's read a true story about a president, or, something like that. Give them a lot of different, or let them explore a lot of different topics through reading. Vocabulary sorts are also really good. And on Teachers Pay Teachers, they have a whole bunch of free ones. And I just did ones for pre-K. And you can just kind of go down a little bit. And one I noticed that I kind of liked, where was it? Day and night. So you would have these pictures, and you would put all the pictures of things that happened during the night under the night label, and everything that happens during the day under the day label. And of course, these are all grouped together, but you would cut them apart and let your child sort where they belong. And you would talk to them about why it belongs under night or why it belongs under day and what the word is. And you can just go on from there. And so I definitely recommend vocabulary sorts as kind of a visual way to talk about vocabulary. A game that I sometimes play is like a 5 senses guessing game. So think about all 5 senses. Like if I was going to do apple pie, I could say, I see a circle. I smell cinnamon. I hear nothing because it doesn't make a sound. I taste apple and dough, and I feel ooey gooey in the center. And so, you could let them guess, oh, it's an apple pie or whatever. So you could do that where they guess, or if they become independent enough, they can think of something and you try to guess what they're thinking of based on the clues that they give you. Another idea that you guys could do together, it's writing oriented, is a 5 senses poem, and you describe your topic with like it smells like, it tastes like, it sounds like, it feels like, it looks like. So it's kind of like the guessing game, but you just write it down. So like for winter, they say winter smells like chimney smoke. Winter tastes like ice. Winter looks like heaven. Winter feels like a deep freeze. Winter sounds like a howling wolf. So you would probably need to help them quite a bit with this part if they're younger, but it's still like a fun experience. They could draw a picture. Like good topics would be foods, or maybe swimming. You could be like, oh, what does swimming smell like? Like chlorine, or like sunscreen, or you could brainstorm a lot of ideas and choose the ones you like best. And this would be a really great way to build their vocabulary. Some other activities that are really good at promoting early literacy is counting words in sentences. So, because a lot of kids, it's kind of surprising when you teach kindergarten that sometimes kids don't know the difference between a sentence and a word, and that's something that has to be taught to them. So you guys could help at home by saying just out loud. All of this stuff is mostly just out loud unless there's a visual picture with it. Usually this kind of stuff is better just from them hearing it alone instead of seeing the words written out. Once they get a little bit older and they have some reading practice, then it's good to put words printed out. But right now, all of these activities are mostly just auditory, hearing them. So this one, you could say a sentence like, the cat sits. And you could do with your fingers, you could go, the cat sits. Oh, that's 3 words. Or if you want to make it a little bit more interactive, you could get out some coins, or if you have like little Lego pieces or something, for each word, they could push one forward. They could say the, and then their little finger moves that coin forward, cat sits. And then you guys can count the coins and be like, oh, that must mean there's 1, 2, 3 words in the sentence. And then just keep going up until like the sentence has 6 or 7 words in it. Syllable blending, which is, taking the 2 or maybe more syllables in a word and blending them together, like rain, bow. What's that word? Rainbow. Cup, cake, cupcake. And so one game that I would play to kind of, drive this point home is a game that's very similar to Duck, Duck, Goose. I call it the cupcake game. One person is it, and they go around the circle, and the word changes each time that they play. But it's generally, for the little kids, I just have 2 syllables just to make it more manageable. So I'll say something like mailman. And so, they would go around the circle. Mail, hit somebody on the head. Man, hit the next person on the head. Mail, man. And then they keep going around. And then when they want to, choose the person for it, they'll say the whole word together. They'll say mailman. So instead of, duck, duck, goose, they'd go mailman, mailman, say the whole word to choose the person. And then, they chase each other, and then the next person becomes it, and then they get a new word. That game always had a whole bunch of success in my classroom. They really, really enjoyed that game. Other games that help are just kind of word games that you can just say. These can be done in the car. They could be done, while you're cooking. They really don't take very much time at all. They're just kind of wordplay. So sounds are called phonemes. So you can practice deleting or taking away a phoneme or a syllable. So like if you said What is rainbow without rain? Bow. Or you could say it the other way. What is rainbow without bow? It's rain. Or you could do it with just taking off a sound. What is stop without top? Or what is cat without at? For sound blending or phoneme blending, this is just like saying the different sounds. And this is very helpful for when they, start sounding out words in print. They'll already kind of have this strategy for them. When they see CAT, they're going to go k-at, cat. But you can practice that without having the words right in front of them. This can just be something you play, and all they do is hear the sounds. So say you're driving again, and you see something. Maybe you see a duck. So instead of saying the word duck, you could say, I spy a duck. And then your kid's like, oh, duck. I see a duck right there. Or, maybe you're at home and you need them to get something for you. Or you can just make it fun and say, oh, find me a hat. And so they go and look for hat. So I would probably, if they are a little bit older and they're kind of getting onto it, I would never blend the word for them. I would let them blend it together, the sounds, and figure out the word on their own. I would just help the younger kids blend the sounds together and say the whole word. And then another thing you can do is phoneme substitution, so change a sound. And so this is another word play game. So like if I have the word man, if I change to k, what's my new word? Can. If I have drop and I change dr to ch, my new word is chop. So these are just some games that you can play with your child to help them have reading success in pre-K and kindergarten. Thank you so much for listening.